I would like to call the July 9th, 2026 Plan Commission meeting to order at 7 p.m. If you are able, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we have a roll call, please?
Bill Thomas.
Here.
Ken Carroll.
Here.
Cheryl Slabazeski. Here. Gordon Butler.
Here.
Jeff Peterson. Marty Flynn.
Here.
John Stanton.
Here. Okay, thank you. And Jeff did let us know that he was unable to make it tonight. Also up here is Community Development Director Daniel Ritter, our City of Crest Hill Planner, Ottafa, and Linda Rehar, our Executive Secretary. First order of business is, can I have a motion to approve the minutes from the Plan Commission meeting held on May 21st, 2026 as presented?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Carroll.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Stanton. Roll call, please.
Ken Carroll.
Yes.
John Stanton.
Yes.
Marty Flynn.
Yes.
Cheryl Slabazeski.
Abstain.
Gordon Butler.
Yes.
And Bill Thomas.
Yes. Okay, for new business, we have one item on the agenda for tonight, and it is a discussion of text amendments to Chapter 15.12 of the Sign Code of the Crest Hill Code of Ordinances. And I'm going to go back to our city planner, Atifa, who will present the specifics and the presentation.
So Dan will be presenting, and I'll help along the way. Is it okay, or should I?
I think.
I will.
Yeah, you're doing the presentation.
I didn't know that, sorry. Okay, so tonight we're going to discuss, this is going to be the first discussion of the text amendments that we are proposing for Chapter 15.12, the Sign Code of City of Crest Hill. The formal public hearing hopefully is going to be our next Planning Commission meeting on August 13th. So after enforcing the sign code for a few months since last year, and prior to that, the city staff, we have identified several, provisions of the code that need to be updated. They are either outdated from the 80s, 90s, and they are not very much relevant to the current needs of the community. They are some of them they are very difficult to interpret, and some of them are not consistent. Some provisions are in conflict with others. Also, we wanted to bring this our sign code up to date with what is happening around Crest Hill, the other communities, and our current provisions of the code. They have created, as you will see in the next slides, and as residents of the city, you see that there are a lot of inconsistent sign qualities. There's visual clutter. We face challenges when we want to enforce the sign code. So our intent of proposing these text amendments is to make it more effective, more enforceable, and aligning with the city's planning and economic development objectives, streamlining our review processes, and making it easier for us to administer and for the business owners and residents to follow. And also helping with improving and enhancing the character of the community overall. So we want to start with our biggest challenge in the city, which is our freestanding signs, ground signs. As you see in the picture, we kind of wanted to visually show the Planning Commission what our current regulations, what do they entail, and how it looks like when you see it visually. So our current sign regulations, this is for commercial properties, and you see There are 4 different categories based on the lot size. There are different categories from the right to left. If it is 5 acres, that's the minimum. The maximum sign area is 50 square feet. Height is 15, and it keeps increasing. That it reaches up to 150 square feet and a maximum height of 30. We also, to show the scale and how, to the human scale, if someone is standing next to it, how it's going to look like, you will see that it is very much out of scale and proportion, and having signs installed throughout the city of this because of our current regulations, what kind of visuals it creates and what is the kind of feeling if someone is standing next to it or walking by or driving by, how they feel. And then we also spent some time driving, around the city in different communities as well to understand, to see the effect of these regulations in the city. We have a lot of not so good examples, but we also have a few good examples of ground signs. So we wanted to show you guys, what has been our experience, kind of like driving around and see the different signs that we currently have in the city. So the next slides are a few examples of the signs that our current regulations allow, and as city staff, although we don't very much recommend it, but because of the regulations, we cannot say no to it either. And unfortunately, there are times that we have to prove it, we don't have any other option. And these examples are representative of our current sign regulations. We have more, and there are a lot of them, but we just picked a few. So the city staff, what we are proposing, so we created some visuals to show you guys, what it could look like and what we're proposing, how you could, what you can imagine. What does that mean, these numbers? So this is a typical 2-story commercial building, very much typical in the city, on Broadway, Plainfield, a lot of, majority of our commercial corridors. On the right, you see our current sign requirements. And as we also saw in the previous slides, that we have 4 categories depending on the lot size. We did a lot of research. We looked at the other communities. Mainly, we looked at Plainfield, Shorewood, Romeoville, communities of the similar scale and character, to see how they are, what are their requirements, why their signs look different than us. And based on best practice and what we have been observing in other communities and based on our research, what we did was, instead of having the signs based on the lot size, we said, let's make it more, simple. And now we are proposing having 2 categories based on the number of tenants. So our first category would be, if it is a single tenant sign, currently we allow 50 square feet. We have increased the sign area from 50 to 60, but we have reduced the height to 6 feet. And for a single tenant sign, this, seems reasonable. And what we are also proposing, we have some regulations for landscaping around the, base of the sign, but it was not clear at all, how much and what type of landscaping. What we are proposing is, for landscaping, there should be a minimum 2 square foot per 1 square foot of sign area, but it should not be less than 50 square feet. Around the base of the landscaping, it should be a very nice, dense cluster of variety of landscaping types. We're also proposing to have not having any poles and pylon signs anymore, and a decorative base is a minimum for any sign, which should be minimum of 75% of the sign width, regardless of the size of the sign, single tenant, multi-tenant sign, they should have a decorative base. So this is our first category. The second is going to be if it is a multi-tenant sign, more than one tenant or one business. We have increased the sign area from 50 to 100, which will give the businesses more flexibility. We get a lot of variance requests from businesses because they are limited to 50 square feet. Now having a 100 square feet sign area is going to give them more flexibility, having more signs to be more creative with their sign designs without the need to apply for variances. And we kept the height to 15 feet maximum for commercial properties. This again the same, there should be a decorative base and landscaping will be required around the base of the sign. And then we looked at Crest Hill to find, what are some real life examples of these type of signs, how it could look like, in real life. So these are some good examples, on the left we have a pole sign, which our current sign regulations allow. And on the right, we have some good examples of single tenant signs, which they have a base. They have a good, the scale and the height of the sign is in proportion with the character of our commercial corridors and commercial properties. But at this point, we want to encourage, it is encouraged at this point, but we want to make it a requirement so that we have more signs of better scale and look throughout the city. Again, more signs. This one is for gas stations, current, and what could be, encouraging better signs that are, on the right side. Some examples of multi-tenant sign from left, current, there are a lot of them, and then what if we could have more signs that look like the right one, on the right side. Then these are some examples from surrounding communities that they already have these requirements that we are proposing and how their communities look like and what could Crest Hill look like if we approve the proposed requirements. So for the other zoning, so what we have discussed so far were for commercial districts, business districts. For residential districts, our existing regulation already prohibit pole and pylon signs in residential districts and projecting signs as well. It's going to remain the same. Existing maximum height is 10 feet. Sign area is limited to 20 square feet. It's going to remain the same. What we are adding is, having a decorative base, that's a must, and having landscaping, which is exactly the same with commercial properties. For office and manufacturing districts, existing height we have 15 and sign area we have 50. What we are proposing, the height will be 10 feet, but we are increasing the sign area to 80, which will give the businesses more flexibility. Again, same with the residential and commercial. Decorative base and landscaping will be required. Next is our wall sign regulations. So what you see on the right is the current regulations. So these two, we wanted to give examples of two equal size tenant spaces with the same frontage and building height. Our current wall sign regulations say that it's very general and broad, and it is applicable to almost all types of buildings, tenant spaces, regardless of the square footage. Let's say the building, like let's say Amazon, is going to have the same regulations, has the same regulations as a tenant space of 20 feet, frontage. And imagining having, so the current regulation says regardless of the size, the sign area is limited to 15% of total wall area, including doors, windows, and everything. Now, having a big box retail, or let's say Amazon warehouse, and imagining having 15% of that total facade covered with sign, it's very much out of proportion, and it doesn't look good, it's out of scale. So on the right, this is what our current code allows. On the left, this is pretty much in all other communities, they have been exactly the same: Sherwood, Plainfield, Romeoville, all similar, scale and size communities. So on the left, what you see is, what we are proposing is the sign area will be limited to and based on the frontage of the tenant space or store. And we are allowing 1.5 square feet per 1 foot of store frontage. And this is how it's going to look like on the left if we follow this requirement. Also, to avoid, if now we talk about, let's say, Amazon warehouse, now there's they have a very long frontage, and they're going to again have a very out of scale sign. So what we have said now we have two more requirements. If the floor area is less than 40 square foot, whatever the frontage is, it can never go beyond 120 square foot of sign area. And if the floor area is more than 40,000 square foot, then the maximum permitted sign area is going to be 400 square feet. Any questions so far? Can we take questions, or should we wait until the end?
We can wait till the end. I'll give a little bit of an overview of kind of where we got on some of these requirements, just for a little bit of context, which is, at least for as long as I've been here, which is going on a year now, signs has been something I've noticed, but it's also some of the regular feedback I've heard from the council and residents, that it's just noticeable we have lower quality signs than surrounding communities. So to be honest with you, when you're driving down Plainfield Road, you can kind of tell when you come into Crest Hill. We just have a lot of pole signs. A lot of them are larger than other communities. There's maintenance issues too, which we can work on, but what we're trying to do here is kind of modernize our code a little bit, make it a little easier to enforce in other ways. And so we're basically doing a little trade-off here. In some ways, there's almost more flexibility in this code for businesses, but we're asking for a little higher standard of a sign. In the context of other communities, really, we're Crest Hill, we can do things different than other communities, but it's also when you're doing economic development, we want to make sure we're not asking for something above and beyond what any other community is asking for. And so that's some of the comparison there to the other communities, that we're trying to make sure nothing we're asking for, none of our requirements are beyond just kind of a typical standard. And in fact, right now, I think Crest Hill's probably got the lowest standards, honestly, in the area. So we're trying to catch up. Signage is a big fit. This group may almost notice more than the regular person, but it really stands out as you're driving through a community in the main commercial corridors. And so, especially even on Weber Road, I mean, you can tell the difference when you get into Romeoville. And even Joliet's got some of these same standards now. I think Ottawa will get into it, but we've also taken into account, again, non-conforming signs in this. So we're not going to bring any upfront cost to any businesses or property owners. This is really just kind of going forward. And right now, over the last year, there's kind of just been some situations where somebody's coming in for a new sign, and probably me and Atifa both cringe. We don't even want to approve it, but we have to, right? Because it meets our code requirements. So And those signs are going to be there for another 30, 50 plus years, and we're kind of stuck with them at that point. So especially with some new development coming here, we thought that was the good time to kind of look at this. Now Atva's been going through kind of some of the details of what we've worked through at this point. And we'll have a public hearing. You guys will actually get the code that we're proposing. But this was really kind of the first stab at. We wanted to give you guys some context visually of what we're talking about. And then also see if you guys are comfortable with that in terms of the zoning code changes. And then also, is there anything we haven't thought of? Is there something else that you guys are seeing in the community? One way or the other, is there something we should be a little more flexible with? Is there something that really stands out as a negative? So we still have a couple more slides here in sign types, but that's the context of where we're kind of have this in front of this group to hopefully make sure we're on the right, as staff, we're on the right path. ATVA's done quite a bit of research and work to make sure we're adjusting this to make it more modern. Even like for these wall signs, the percentage of a wall area is not used anywhere that I've seen. I'm sure you can find somewhere, but most communities around here use like the linear footage just because it ties in with the scale of the sign, and it's a lot easier just for sign companies, for staff, and everybody to know. It's a lot easier to run a tape measure in front of a building than it is to try and get the height and the square footage and discount breaks in the walls. So in some ways we're trying to simplify this too. And you could see that kind of even in the breakdown of the code. Right now, it's basically been ad hoc changed over the last, 50 years, 60 years? Like, and so each time something's come up, they've added a section, and it's pretty hard if you're a sign company, a business, to figure out what you can even do in our code right now. So we've really tried to simplify and break that down into sign types and then kind of more the administrative sections. But the layout overall will hopefully just be a little easier too. So again, in some ways it looks like we're adding a ton of costs, but that's not. We're going to be a little more flexible too in terms of square footage and things like that, but we just are aiming to get some better signs. My last point I'll make is that making a code that's different than the last code is sometimes painful. So I can already predict there will be somebody that will see all the old signs and say, I want that. And we can discourage them. They may end up here asking for a variance. And that can be kind of tough to have these non-conforming situations exist while you're trying to make the change. My goal will be to try and cheerlead you guys to stick to the code that we end up adopting here. And over time, that will start to change, and I think it'll really make a big difference for the city of Crest Hill, especially along Plainfield Road, Larkin and Weber, Theodore, Broadway. I think you'll start to see a little bit of a change there as these signs change. This is in context with other things that we're going to be bringing forward to you, like uses, other zoning standards and things like that. But to me, signage is one of those things where each time we get a new development and we have new signs that we're approving that aren't good, I think long term, we wanted to take a stab at resolving this and kind of updating it now. So
Do you want to
pass it back to you.
Yeah. Do you want to take this one? This is.
Sure. Yeah, temporary signs is kind of a big one too. So we talk about ground signs and wall signs, which are permanent ones that the businesses use. But there's temporary signs, which a lot of businesses use to kind of advertise sales or their business opening, grand openings, things like that. They're useful in a sense if you're trying to advertise a sale, a grand opening again, something new, something's changed. Unfortunately, we also have businesses that would have temporary signs up 365 days a year, and they would put 10 of them out there if they could. That's great if nobody else is doing it because it stands out and people might see it. But if you could imagine, especially in like a Hillcrest shopping center, if every business had signs out there, It would obviously detract from that whole area. There'd be some dangerous situations and visibility issues as well. So those stand out in a negative way from a lot of the complaints we've received here and in the code enforcement department. Our current situation basically says you can have a temporary sign for 10 days. You can get up to 3 permits per year, but then you can go to city council and get an extension or more if you want. With anything else in the zoning code, we want some level of fairness across all business types. So we don't want to encourage people to go to city council and ask for extensions. We want to have a code that's fair and makes sense for everyone. So we've proposed being able to get up to 3 permits per year. Each one of those could be 30 days, so it's a pretty significant amount of time. But on the other hand, we've basically prohibited some of the worst signs, I guess, that you would say out there. Kind of the teardrop or feather flags that may look okay when you first put them up, but get worn out pretty quickly. The wind tends to damage those, move them, and part of their point is they're distracting and they're on roadways. So you'll still be able to have temporary signs, banners, advertise grand openings, do kind of the yard type signs, A-frame signs, a lot of other ones, but what we're trying to do is limit the ones that are waving, moving, dancing in the air, and trying to grab drivers' attention away from driving. So again, we've proposed a little bit here. It's a little give and take. We give them a little more flexibility in terms of the signs they can get, but it's going to be a little more restrictive in terms of the types. Inflatable signs as well. The only time I've really seen those be a reasonable idea is car dealers left them. They want the inflatable gorilla on the roof or whatever. We don't really have any new car dealers here. We only have some used car dealers, and they tend to be on pretty confined lots. So those have been a problem. Most recently, a picture of one on Total Wireless there that ripped off. And when you put them on roofs, there's also no way to kind of properly attach them. Even in parking lots and things like that, the way they attach those is usually never how they're supposed to be attached. So this got attached to the parapet and ripped it off, and almost ended up on Theodore Street before they finally were able to listen to us and take it down. So it's one of those things where, again, we're not trying to hurt businesses, but we also need to make sure it's kind of an even playing field amongst businesses. If each one has a inflatable sign like that, and you do that across Crest Hill, it's going to look pretty bad. So again, we want to be business friendly, allow them some signs, but keep it even across them. And then again, there's always a request for ability for somebody to go to city council or to you guys to ask for a variation. But we really want to try and limit that here, so that way there's not a bunch of special exceptions, and depending on who you are and if you decide to go to city council, you get more time. We want to kind of keep it even across all businesses. So there are some other regulations like garage sales, political signs, real estate signs. Those will largely remain the same. This will just be for business temporary signs.
Other aspects, the proposed updates are we have added more definitions to define different types of signs mean, what kind of modifying and defining our sign area, what is building frontage, what kind of signs there are, attention-getting signs. We added more definitions, more sign types. So at this point, window signs, canopy signs, awning signs, and wall signs, they are treated the same. There are no specific, typologies, and there are no specific requirements for each sign type. So we have expanded our sign types. Now we have window signs. We have a separate category for canopy signs and awning signs, and we also having some provisions for gas station canopy signs as well, and we also have definitions specific for these type of signs. We also expanded our list of prohibited signs, as you might have already noticed from the beginning of the presentation. We are proposing that all poles and pylon signs will be prohibited in all zoning districts. Right now it is prohibited in residential, but we want to expand it to all other zoning districts, commercial, industrial, office zoning districts. Administration and enforcement. So for all illegal prohibited signs, now we are proposing that they must be removed within 10 days from receiving a written notification from the city. All the proposed new regulations, modified regulations, existing non-conforming signs, they can stay as they are. If they are not expanded, they are not replaced entirely, but they can be modified to, as close as possible, meet the current, the proposed sign regulations. They can be maintained. Let's say they can replace the panels. They can maintain it so that it is, structurally sound, but they should remain as it is, but they can continue maintaining their legal non-conforming conforming status.
Just as a clear, so like an illegal or prohibited sign would be one that went up without a permit, didn't meet the prior code, still doesn't meet the code. To this day, it shouldn't be there. Where non-conforming sign, legal non-conforming would mean at some point it met the code, at some point it got a permit. It may not even meet the code today, but it's not going to meet this current new code. So that's what the legal the difference between those of being illegal non-conforming and legal non-conforming signage there.
Yeah, and if the sign is modified or damaged more than 50% of its cost value, then at this point our regulations will kick in and they are required to be brought into compliance. And if a building or store space becomes vacant, the sign that is associated with that business, which is no longer, doesn't exist anymore, that sign also should be removed or brought into compliance. So we have some flexibilities for our existing pole, signs that will not meet the requirements of the code, as long as they stay, they're maintained and stay the same.
And that's the goals, again, not to have any businesses, any property owners. This isn't going to cost anybody immediately any money. So we're not, there are other communities that have done that. You could put a sign code in and then basically say you have 5 years to bring everything into conformance. We're not doing that at this point. Maybe later on, as you get more compliance and we get closer, then you may have a few straggling properties that you might want to kind of push to have them bring it into conformance. But at this point, we just want it to be signs going forward, essentially. And then anybody that's got an existing one, it would be able to remain there today as long as it didn't get damaged, replaced. And then as the one regulation said, you can amend or you can change a current non-conforming sign to bring it closer into conformance, even if it's not completely. So if somebody's got a sign that's 2 feet too tall and they want to put a solid base on it, we'd allow them to modify it to do that, to bring it into closer conformance. But can't go the other way. So again, the goal is to get conformance over time and not cost any businesses or property money up front. But it will end up, some of the sign regulations we have there do cost more than a pole sign. So a brick base costs more than just a solid standard pole. Not unreasonably, again, these signs last 30, 40, 50 years. They go across multiple businesses. So to me, that's a good investment to have property owners do up front, is to have a really solid sign that can kind of go over time, as opposed to just kind of a pole sign that they have to keep repainting every 10 years when the rust shows up, and it just kind of starts to detract. So, again, we have questions or comments or considerations, and we kind of wanted to do kind of a discussion meeting like this with you because it's so visual. It may also have you guys looking over the next month if you're out there and something pops into your mind and you don't have it today. Feel free to contact me or Atifa in the meantime as well, because this is kind of one of those things you need to think about. And I'll also say with the new code, our goal is to get it close as possible. We want to think about all the scenarios that we can. Sometimes there's things you don't think of though, and so you never really know with the code until you test it. And if something doesn't go according to what we think, what the intent was here, we would come back and we can always make some adjustments to it if we think something's not happening the way we thought it would. But we're just trying to take the best stab at the best code we can. And again, our code right now is probably from 1970, so it's about time we do some updates to it. So. Pass it to you, Chairman, if there's...
So why don't we just go down the road? You got any comments?
I think it's a great idea. I like the concept that you guys are going after.
Any questions or comments?
Is there any provisions for example, there's a gas station on Larkin it's on the west side between 30 and Theodore. They have two signs, one in front of the gas station and another one on 30, which is remotely from the gas stations. Is there any regulations for that?
Yeah, that's a good
Do you
question.
mean, is it on the property or it is off-site? Is it an off-premises sign or both are?
It appears to be off-site.
Okay, so our current regulations, they don't permit off-premises signs. If there is something, there is an existing, but it is non-conforming. There are communities, when I was doing research, there are communities that there is a requirement for spacing. If one property has, let's say, two signs, let's say they say there should be a minimum of 100 feet spacing between two so that they are not very close to each other, they don't block the driveway or the vision. But they also say that per street frontage, they can have one. But that was a next level restriction of signs, and we are just getting started with updating our code, so that's why we didn't include that into our requirements. But maybe as a next step, when we update the sign code next time, we can think of that as well.
Well, and so it does allow, like you said, it allows one per frontage. So when it's on a corner, you'd be able, and let's say you had two entrances,
Well,
you'd be allowed two signs.
I could see having a corner, having two signs, but...
Both
this
are
particular-
on the same side of the street, right? Are they?
Well, no, they're actually, far from a corner, they're in the middle. So they have a sign there, and they also have a sign there on Theodore. So corner business lots, I could see having a couple of signs or one sign, whatever. But when it's off the corner,
Yeah, it's like an
interior
lot.
Yeah,
right?
we wouldn't allow off-site signage except for within, like, let's say a planned unit development came forward and they came up with a master sign plan. I could see that when and if Hillcrest ever gets some like redevelopment, you know, that's all kind of interconnected. So you have different lots. You might have off-site signage in a planned area like that. But we would not allow anything that's kind of off-site. We don't allow it now. We wouldn't allow it with the update. if there's something non-conforming from the past, again, our codes have changed quite a bit, and there are some properties that have kind of gotten variations and stuff like that over time, so.
Okay. What about tent sales? You know, sometimes businesses have tent sales and is that considered part of the signage?
Yes, they would, we have a temporary use allowance, so you can do kind of, you know, if you did some type of tent sale in a parking lot, you'd have to follow the regulations already for the use itself, for duration, getting a permit, things like that, and then you would need.
Special events too, right? Is it?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
But we do for like temporary uses too,
Yeah.
that go outside of the building. And so with that, you need to get a temporary sign permit as well. So you could, again, put a permit or put a banner on the tent itself. You could put one out by the roadway that said, you know, tent sale, but we're not going to allow waving flags or wacky wavy inflatable tube men or dancing gorillas or anything like that, so.
Okay, my next question is, there's 3 permits per year for temporary signs. Could they have it 3 months consecutive, or they have to be spread out through the year? So maybe you need to clarify that a little bit, or
Yeah.
take that in consideration.
Yeah, there are some communities, when I was doing research, there are more restrictions, they limit, first of all, the number of businesses, let's say on a shopping center, let's say they have 10 businesses. They say some of them say not more than 20% of the businesses they can have temporary signs at one time. And they also say, there should be some gap between the 2 permits, let's say sometimes, a couple of weeks, 1 month. But that is, again, more restrictions. And at this point, we didn't want to impose more restrictions for temporary signs. And at this point, we do not restrict it, that there should be a spacing, there should be a gap. They can have it back to back. But when someone applies for a permit, let's say that permit is for 30 days and they use it for 10 days, that permit is, regardless of how many days they have used it, that permit is used. They cannot say, well, I used it for 10 days, I have 20 more days, maybe I can use it for another permit. So that permit will constitute that whole 30 days, even though they didn't use it for that. But that is, again, something that we can take into consideration as a next step to what we are proposing.
Yeah,
So the
and
permit
if you
should
have any
say
fee,
Up to 30 days.
It is up to 30 days.
Yeah, so I mean, that's what it
Oh,
means.
so
If you
now-
don't use the whole thing,
Yes.
yeah, we'll take any feedback on that one. We didn't put, so the way we wrote it, because even now we currently kind of, I'll call it like stacking the temporary permits. You can do essentially 90 days straight and keep something out there. We just thought that was easier to leave it that way, but we certainly, if you guys have
so you weren't
opinions on it.
considering a permit per sign. You're saying the same sign could be permitted 3 times?
There is no, I don't think, there is nothing as renewal or extension. If someone uses that for 30 days and they want to use that same sign, they have to apply for a new permit. And then that's going to like reset the clock again for 30 days.
Or if they knew coming in, they could apply for like all 3 permits up
Okay.
front. But it would be 3 separate temporary sign permits. And each one of those comes with a fee too. It's not an unreasonable fee, but they do have to pay a
What
temporary sign.
happens if
Makes sense.
all 3 signs have been used throughout the course of the year and a 4th occasion comes along and he
Yeah.
wants to sign, can he do this?
My answer to a business would then you shouldn't have used all 3 of your temporary sign permits you should do some planning and actually make sure you, like every business, you should think about, hey, where are my sales at throughout the year? Where are my events at?
Okay, so In other words, that's a.
do some planning.
That's gonna be a finite number,
So
3
that
signs.
would be my initial response to somebody. Again, there is an option, could somebody come to city council and say, I have some really unique situation? I would want to make sure it's a unique situation and not just, well, we want to have a 4th tent sale this year. I would probably say
No.
no, that would be my recommendation to city council, but there are some unique ones out there. I mean, I think about like the Italian club, and some of the stuff they do is fairly unique. It's, you know, community events and things like that. I think you could sway me at least to say, if something was a community-wide event or something a business was doing, it wasn't just for their business.
Yeah.
Even if they're advertising it a little bit in there, I would say, okay, that's something different if
Yeah.
it's a wider event. But for just an individual business, probably not.
Not to get off the subject, but in your research, did you ever touch base with the fire department? And I say that because we had a meeting here 2 years back where we approved a 50 square foot sign. And the fireman that was on our planning commission at that time, he says, you know, I'd like to see them a little bit bigger because they had a call, and in trying to find the building where they had to go to, it was a rainy night in very inclement weather, and they're in a moving vehicle. They couldn't read the sign. I think he drove past it maybe once or twice before he finally found it. And this was, you know, this was an emergency call. So
Yeah.
I just asked the question if they, you might want to just touch base with them just to make sure that you've got all your bases covered. So
That's a good point. I think coming out of, once we draft this, so it'll go to our attorney as well to look at, there's a lot of legalities with signage and free speech and stuff like that too. There's some recent court cases. But fire's another good one to have a look at it. That's part of the point where we actually allow, most of these signs are allowed to actually be bigger than they are currently.
Yeah.
And that's, we want people to see where they're going. You know,
Oh, yeah.
signage serves a purpose for even just the average person to go, if you're looking for a business, you want to be able to find it.
Yeah.
Now, we want it to look good while they're doing that. We don't want it to stand out in a bad way, but you need to see where you're going.
Okay.
We also have requirements to have them, and I don't know if it's in the sign code or it's in our fire code, but they have to put the address numbers big enough. There's a minimum, but then they also have to be big enough and in scale, because that's a lot of times what they're looking for on emergency calls too, is the addresses themselves of these properties.
It is part of the sign code. We have a provision for street numbers for addresses as well.
Yeah. But there's nothing that would require businesses to have a sign. So you could have a business choose not to have one. Usually that's not going to be the case. And again, there is a requirement though that they have, it's visible from the street. We can make them illuminated even if that becomes an issue.
Yeah, I just throw that out there because of that one particular instance that was called to my attention. And it was to Amazon. And I think that they just couldn't read it. So.
Yeah, and that one's kind of set back, and that one's kind of set back and stuff too, so I could see that.
Otherwise, you guys are doing a great job here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you done, John? All set?
I'm done.
Cheryl?
I have a question. So I'd understand that the existing businesses have to change over to this new ordinances, the new ruling, or are they grandfathered in?
I hate the word grandfathered, so does every attorney that's here. They're legal non-conforming, so they're allowed to remain the way they are. They do not have to change over to this if they're operating and they have a sign right now. They'll only have to do that if they replace the sign. If the property becomes vacant and vacated, the next business would have to. So the goal is not, there wouldn't be anything immediate that any current business or property owner would have to do if they're operating today. It would just be slowly over time it would change.
Okay. I think it's a very good idea. Nice
Thanks.
work.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a great job. It's going to work. Like you mentioned before, I think we just need to be unless unique circumstances come in, be consistent with the people asking for variances in the future and make sure that we stay consistent with, this proposal.
Yeah, that was my forewarning. I could see it happening, right? Like somebody's gonna look around and see all the signs now and be like, I wanna do that. And
Yeah.
that's why we go through this process to talk about what we wanna see changed. If we never did that, we'd be stuck in 1959's code still. And I think we're already a little behind the time. It's time we change, but it is a little painful there at times. So without a variance in front of us right now, this is where I'm kind of preaching a little bit to go, both this group and city council sticking to our codes helps us enforce them. It actually avoids people coming here because we can say, we kind of know what our plan commissioner or city council are going to say. And so when we take this big picture approach of what we want to see the community look like, that's what we should stick to. And not, it is tough though. I get it. When you have a business, when you have a resident here and they're asking for some relief on something, it can be tough sometimes to look at it that way. But that's why I'm saying it now, because I see it happening at some point. You're going to have a business or a property owner say, I don't want to spend this money for a brick base. Nobody else has it. And again, the goal is kind of a bigger picture. We need to start moving forward in the right direction.
Yeah, I think a good example of going on about how we have to be a little bit reasonable is the bowling alley on Theodore. When they sold and the soccer club bought them, they had really nice signs, but they were non-conforming signs. And so they had to come to us for a variance rather than spend the money to move a perfectly good sign a few feet away and we gave them that variance. So, I mean, we have to be a little bit aware that these are new businesses, and if they have to spend $10,000, $20,000 just to change their signs, they may not be so acceptable to doing that. But I do have a couple questions. One of my real pet peeves was one of the first signs you put up there about a local shopping center. It was a pole sign, probably had 12, 14 businesses on it. Some of them had moved away, some of them were vacant, and that's kind of one, but the one I saw had a blank white sign. I hate to see blank white signs on a sign that's got 8 regular signs and then a blank white one. It just sends to me a kind of a crummy note of that. I'd rather see us have it where if you're going to have a space and no business, make it like a nice blue sign, something other than white that at least has a little bit classy to it rather than run down.
I can tell you that often happens from, like, you have a business close in a multi-tenant shopping center, and especially if it's a chain, so like Smoothie King's one in Hillcrest, and so Smoothie King themselves will come there. Because they don't want to leave, like the last sign, they don't want to leave a gap, and I'll just let you know they already have violation notices. You don't want to leave it open because that exposes everything else in there, and you start getting blowouts of the sign panels and things like that. So they flip, but they also don't want to advertise that there's a Smoothie King there still, so they flip the sign backwards.
Back it over and use the same sign.
And that's not awful as a temporary solution, but you don't want to see that as a long-term one.
It just denotes kind of a cheapness of that.
And
But I also am
and again, the
concerned
hope
about
would be it fills up quick.
how many
and
names,
you
like
have
the
one.
sign on the left. We don't have a limit about how many store names can go on one sign? I mean, that drives me crazy. If I drive in there and I'm like, oh my gosh, look at all the names on this sign.
Yeah, so I think limiting the sign area now, based what we're proposing, is going to also address that, to kind of limit the how many they can incorporate.
But we don't want to make it smaller so they
Yeah,
can.
but also, we also added the provision that no matter what, one tenant cannot occupy more than 50% of the total sign area, to be fair to other tenants as well.
Yeah.
Because maybe they're paying more, they can get more sign area. So we also added that limit as well. No matter the total sign area available, one tenant cannot go over 50%.
Yeah, I hear you, but then you look at the sign on the right there, I mean, that's the anchor store.
So
And the anchor store would typically get more surface area than the other small stores. So we gotta be careful there, we don't wanna upset that. The anchor store moves, that place goes under.
we typically leave it to the landlord to kind of divide the space up, right? So if they want to give food for less 100% of it, they could give them 100%. But they're typically trying, it actually works out that they're trying to divide it enough between all the tenants where obviously Food for Less is the anchor tenant, so they're on every sign, even if it's only a small amount. And then there are certain ones that they have more square footage of. But then all the other spaces, they're trying to give them kind of equitable based on how many square footage. And again, we're looking at Hillcrest, which we have nothing else like. And when they come in to replace those signs, they're going to be coming in for probably still variance, right? It's so much square footage there. It's really kind of a pretty unique property.
Yeah.
Total square footage, total size, total number of businesses, all of that's pretty unique. Not that you can't do it better than it is today, but it's just going to be a unique one. The one thing I have seen, I love it, it's really tough to enforce, is you have the back panels be the same color and you have them be neutral, you have it be where it's a white background
Right.
or something consistent, and then it really helps, it helps you look at it, so that way you're not looking at red and green and blue and yellow, and that gets even more distracting. It's really tough to enforce that
Yes.
because you have tenants with specific branding and things like that.
Logos and stuff.
Again, I would love to require that, but it would probably be more on like a case-by-case basis if we were giving a variance or something.
Or a special use.
Or a special use or a PUD, that then you tie that into the requirements. I would love to see that on Hillcrest because there's so many tenants and so many colors going on. Even limiting it to 2 or something like that would be nice.
So the
It is
picture,
tough though, because over
the second one
time.
from the left, the dollar move-in sign, would you classify that as a temporary sign?
Yes,
It's up all year?
yep. And
I mean, talk
enforcement.
about crummy.
Enforcement is something else that we haven't brought up here in the code, but we're working on it. Not noted in this, but will be happening, is currently it's kind of this weird mixture of you go to the clerk's office to get a temporary sign permit, but it's more of kind of a zoning and sign regulation, and then the enforcement is on our side too. Previously, we didn't even track them. It was just if we noticed them. Now, if we get a notice from the clerk's office, we kind of automatically schedule a follow-up inspection. But there is existing stuff out there or stuff that just kind of pops up and isn't very noticeable over time. We're not out trying to scout for them all the time, but obviously if we notice them, we'll.
Yeah, just so adding to Dan's point about the background color and how the design looks like. Other communities, they have requirements of the background, even material, the size of the text, how it looks like, all the signs. All the tenants should look the same, certain requirements that because make it look the same in terms of proportion and scale, but that is again more restrictions maybe as our next updates and next step, I can say, to what we are proposing now. So that's definitely something that we can take into consideration.
And those are easier to put into place on new developments as opposed to retroactively trying to do that.
Yeah.
I've seen you have the shopping centers, you'll see them in certain towns where they'll even make them keep a certain font across all the wall signs and stuff. I think it looks nice. Every community, even Naperville, even some of the North Shore ones, I see it fade because you just get certain tenants that have, they even have a certain font to their logo, and you start to really get into and it almost always ends up being dropped at some point. It's easy to do that in the beginning when you have like a property owner a developer, they bought into it, but usually after the next property owner or different tenants change out, it's really tough to keep that moving. So if we have, we'll kind of do that more on a case-by-case basis, but we didn't want to put it in the code
So
for now.
you had a slide up there about city labs. Remember that one? You had 4.
The building sign, yeah.
Wall sign.
There you
Yeah,
go.
right there. So, you know, if I'm driving by and I'm looking for City Labs, I really like that sign on the right, and yet what we're saying is we were gonna get away from that sign and go maybe more to the one on the left, which I have a hard time seeing if I'm on the street this far from that building. What's wrong with the sign on the right that's so visible?
I don't think there's anything with this specific example to go, that one is way out of scale. But there are some, because we have it based on the percentage of the wall area, that have gotten like surprisingly large on some of ours. And again, wall signs typically aren't going to be something you're looking at from the road. You're usually looking more for the ground signs there. These are usually more like once you're in the property itself. That square footage per linear foot is a sliding scale. So I've seen it everywhere from 1 to 1 to 1 to 3. So you could have 3 square foot per linear foot. That's kind of the highest I've seen. 1 is fairly restrictive. I think we landed on 1.5, but that is kind of a scale there. You could bump that up to 2 if you wanted to see it get a little bigger. It could be 2, you get 2 square foot per sign per linear foot. I think we landed on 1.5 just based on what was standard around here, right? But that is one like that is just kind of we're looking at what's going on around us, going what's the normal. So, but I'll say Hoffman Estates was I think 3 to 1. Tinley Park when I worked there was 1 to 1. Naperville is I believe 1 to 1. So it kind of bounces all over the place.
So I got one last, and that we didn't talk about, and that's the brightness of signs. I think we've talked about that either in here or in city council where, with these LED signs, some of them get to be so bright that, you can see them from 30,000 feet flying by, and unfortunately, the neighbors across the street are seeing this. Do we have some limit on the lumens that a sign can emit?
So the sign code itself, it does not specify the intensity of the light, but there are provisions that say it should meet the electrical code. So there are references that you should comply with the provisions of the city electrical code.
There is
I don't think the electrical code, LED lights take a lot less power in there.
It's not specific to LED signs, but that is,
Illuminated
we
signs
do have,
generally.
illumination in general, we have there's a section of our code that hits noise, sound, and light. And so even like lights in the parking lot and stuff like that are attached to it, and that does apply to all light coming off the property. And it's specific to whether it's commercial to commercial property or commercial to residential. I think it's probably a good point to maybe at least reference that, because that point, even that section of our code points to a national kind of electrical lighting standard that they use, so that way we're not just coming up with it. And it doesn't allow glare or light to go off site. So I will say it's come a long way with LED signs. So they almost all have photo sensors now, so that way they dim at night. And I haven't, usually if there's an issue, I haven't had a big problem calling the business saying, it's distracting to drivers, it's visible from residential properties, you need to have that turned down at night. And again, almost all of the new ones come with photo sensors, so not that doesn't resolve past older ones that you kind of had to manually adjust. But there's been less issues, and again, I've run into it occasionally. I haven't had a situation where I've had a business owner go, no, I'm going to turn this thing all the way up. And I'm sure if anybody's driven I-80 for a long time, there was the Pipe Fitters Union sign is a pretty well-known one because that thing lit up I-80 from a mile in each direction, and I think they even got some pretty harsh backlash for that for a while because they didn't turn it down. But I think they got that finally fixed. But I do think we could at least reference that maybe in here to say lighting needs to meet, the glare and lighting standards that we have
I think it's
for everything within the city.
So, what you guys are doing is probably well overdue for taking a look at this. My biggest fear is that, the city of Crest Hill is so well bounded on all four sides that we're not like Romeoville and Naperville where they're bringing on all these new places that they can now get them all kind of to come in line. Because we said it several times, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to go back to existing businesses and tell them, you got to switch so we all look beautiful. I think we need to do it. I don't think we're going to do it enough to where we all wish we could make everything become so beautiful, but that doesn't say we shouldn't do it where we can do it. And I think of like the North Weber Road area where we're going to see in the next couple of years, I think a boom up there with the seasons.
Yeah, it is a long-term vision and change doesn't happen overnight. What we are looking for is, 15 years from now, 20 years from now, how the city could look like.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely, it's going to require time, but again, it's a long-term vision.
And there is
15 years
options.
from now, if all of us do our job, every spare lot in Crest Hill is going to be booked because we've only got so many left, and
There are options there, like if we get to the point that we say, hey, we want to start pushing this a little more, we want to start, we have some good examples out there on new developments, let's start pushing it. If I get that direction, you can do it via code. Now, I will tell you, business owners and property owners do not like that. You can also incentivize it.
yeah,
So
we
we
need
have
to
a
maybe
grant
look at
program.
subsidizing people to subsidize them to come into code and make their signs
And you
beauty
say,
like-
hey, we'll help you with some amount
Yeah.
of the cost to bring this closer. We do have a grant program, and I'm in the process of amending that with the city council now, that it was previously the facade improvement grant. It's now a commercial property improvement grant. It doesn't apply to wall signs anymore, which I think was not a good use for that type of money. But it does apply to ground signs. So if somebody's bringing a pole sign into conformance, as of the next city council meeting, it'll be adopted. Somebody could apply to get up to $10,000 for us to help them bring their sign into conformance. So we will have those things to help us try and move it along. And then if somebody's coming in for variances and things like that, usually in the background, we're pushing for things. So if somebody's redoing a property, asking for a special use, some of the things we're looking for is, no, you can't keep your 50-year-old rusting sign. Can you bring that into conformance? Those things tie into those other requests. So especially like along Broadway and stuff like that, I think we'll have an opportunity to
that's a good
get
point. There's
conformance
vacant
through
lots
other.
there. Maybe we can eventually kind of go down and make all those new places that are coming along have very nice looking uniform signage to make that area become, the poster child of what we wish we could do. Wouldn't that be something if we start talking about, boy, if everybody was like Broadway,
Gonna live that long?
Yeah,
Probably
definitely.
Maybe we'll get there one day, but
Yeah.
for now, that we thought this was a good start, and then we can always come back and revisit how we get a little better compliance. But getting a few wins, and again, stopping approving existing sign. The self-storage place really hurt me to approve a brand-new sign on a brand-new development that's got a pole. It's got some landscaping at the base, but I'm like, that should have been something that's a little nicer and ties in with the site. We'll be able to do that now rather than just being stuck.
Well, I'm pretty sure I
Approving it.
speak for the other commissioners that once we get this sign code drafted and approved by city council, we will try to be as tough as we can to keep that
Thank you.
sign code and not give as many variances as probably people would like to have to try to get this thing going. And I think we could commit to that. So I think,
And
do I
even,
speak for all the
even
commissioners
saying that
we are all in
helps us.
favor of them continuing to doing what they're doing?
Absolutely.
So as we bring this to a close, what I would like to get into the minutes is the Plan Commission recommendation that will go to City Council, which would say something like, the Plan Commission unanimously recommends that the staff continues to complete the applicable research and draft the proposed sign code text amendments for review at an upcoming Plan Commission public hearing.
I don't think we need that motion right now, so we're
Well,
going
it's
to
not a
come.
motion, it's just we gotta leave here with something, we'd say, well, we disagree with
Like
what
a
they're,
vote.
I think.
Yeah,
we'd
if
like
you want to
have
take
that
like a
we
straw
agree.
poll vote, it's really just direction for us.
Yeah, that's
because
all it is.
The
No
next
vote.
meeting will be the public hearing for the
Right.
actual text
So
So did you
amendment.
say August, did I hear August 30th?
Yeah, August 13th.
Oh, 13th, and
Yeah,
that's when you're
13th.
planning to come back with
As
that
a
for
public
us?
You'll have an
hearing,
actual
formal
drafted
public
text amendment
Okay.
that requires a public hearing, and that'll be your formal recommendation
Yeah,
to city council. But if you want to make basically a straw poll
Yeah,
vote
just-
motion to give staff direction to continue.
Well, I
to-
think if unanimously recommends you continue doing what you're doing, I mean, I
Yeah.
think.
That's what we heard. I got enough feedback today to know that we're on the right
Rather than say,
path.
no, stop,
If
you're
I
going
walked
the
in here and
wrong
you guys
way.
said you're wasting your time, we love all our
Yeah.
pole signs that are
Yeah,
rusting
so
out
that
there,
it
I've
is
been like,
on-
okay,
yeah.
you know, it's,
So that it is on the record, as the minutes and as the meeting as well, so.
Yeah.
think
Well,
that-
I will tell you this, that I have my own YouTube model railroad channel, and when I drive around, and I'm a big sign person, I have signs all over my layouts, and where they come from is if I see a real sign out there, I will take a picture, miniaturize it, and it ends up on my layout. And I pick, if I say, wow, that's an incredible sign. So, I mean, hopefully, one day I can drive around Crest Hill and say, well, I'm gonna get a lot of these signs on
Being
my layout,
inspired,
you know?
yeah.
But no, I really like signs. What they can do for a community is incredible. I did a little research, and boy, they talk about how appropriate signage can make or break a community. And, and I think what you found is we've got some really good ones, and we've got some not so really good ones. And it's a shame that we have those that aren't very good, that don't kind of promote why you'd want to move there. And, but no, you're on the right track.
and we got a lot of, Plainfield Road especially because
my
of how
goodness.
small the lots are. Like, it gets compounded because
Yeah.
you have
Well,
sign,
we
sign,
look
sign,
forward
sign.
to having you come back with the real thing and helping the city move forward on this. There's no doubt about it.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right, any other business? Any public comments? I did have on here, Daniel, if you wanted to give us any updates on some previous plan commission
Yeah.
things?
The 103 LC, which was the building that was a storage, that was approved by city council, and then 1818 to 1820 Broadway, the concrete lifting, one that's on the east side of Broadway, they were approved by city council. Atva's been working with them as well to try and get them in for permits.
They have submitted their permit.
Oh,
yeah.
good.
So they're a little small time, but I think that's still a really good project that will get water and sewer over to that side of the road. And I think when you start to get that type of progress, it will keep rolling. And again, we are working with almost every single property owner on that side of Broadway. So there could be some really good momentum there, and we're going to try and keep bringing good improvements there. It may not be everything we want, but to start seeing some positive change over there will be a good thing. So the bowling alley and is that playtime soccer, or the soccer facility and the restaurant going into the former bowling alley, I know they're working on their upcoming closing. It was supposed to be coming up here at the end of July. I asked for an update. I haven't gotten one quite yet from the broker. He mostly noted it's because they're going through a small business loan, so that takes some extra hurdles to kind of get through some of that. It's all looking fine, but it just takes a little extra time. In the meantime, I think they told us either this weekend, they finally cleaned it up a little bit. It was starting to look pretty bad. So we did tell them the current owners have to get out there and kind of clean it up. The fire department asked them to move a block that was blocking access. So they've done some things to at least keep it okay for now. Hopefully within the next couple weeks to a month, we'll have new owners that'll actually be rehabbing it, but it's just taking a little time because of the extent of the work and the exterior work. The loan's a little more complicated. So, quick trip at the old city hall. The last update we got was for a late July, mid to late July demo. Obviously, that time is quickly approaching here. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes a little into August, but they do have their permits in for the redevelopment and in the site work. And again, they're just kind of working through the demolition. All the abatement of the lead paint, asbestos, all of that's been taken care of. So all they're waiting for is disconnects from ComEd, NICOR, and then the county to approve the demo. And then we'll move forward with that. And then they have the permits to kind of move straight into site work on that property. So it'd be good to see that happen this year. Seasons of Crest Hill, the apartment multifamily, they've had permits in. They've even gone through a few revisions. They're getting their contractors into us, the guarantees and everything else they need to do. They're very, very close to getting permits and starting the site work on that. So that'll be within the month or two.
Cheryl and I this week, you signed that, right?
Yes.
We went and signed the plat.
Yep. Yeah, they were finalizing the plat.
Yeah.
And everything else that's going on out there. So don't be surprised if you start seeing equipment even show up there, because I think they're getting ready to move dirt and do some work out there. So another good one. Mather Farm, which we've talked about, that redevelopment that went to City Council for conceptual approval. That's upcoming too. They're still working with us. There's a lot of details. There's an annexation agreement and a lot of other stuff we're kind of working through that all needs to align. So still moving forward with that. They got us a traffic study that's a fairly important piece to that approval. So looking forward to that coming forward to you guys this year. At the upcoming meeting, we will have the City Center Plaza, which is going to be between City Hall and the library. It's basically the space that's between there. We're going to be planning a plaza, playground, and park that'll be there. Don't get too excited. The total approval of that park won't be coming to this group, but it does include somewhat of the subdivision of both the park, the overall plaza property. We're also going to break out a piece of it for the park district because they're going to want to own their own piece and they're going to have a playground and stuff there. We'll have some conceptual ideas of what's going, but we haven't worked out every detail of it. We're still meeting internally. City Council will weigh on that as well. But just due to the uniqueness of a lot, it's actually going to be a lot within a lot and things like that. There's technically variances in the subdivision that's got to come forward to you guys. So that'll definitely be at the next meeting because we're going to move that forward. We'll also have a use chart update will be upcoming. So just over the last year, again, me, Atva, we've noticed some things, gotten some feedback of just kind of certain uses that we want to take a look at that chart and go, is there stuff we can maybe be looser with? Is there some stuff we need to be a little stricter with that isn't what we want to see in Crest Hill? And then even a question came up that we'll get a little direction from City Council on is data centers, and just putting that in there so we know and there's not any ambiguity if that comes up. We'll be clear on it. So all that will kind of come together as one use chart update. So that discussion will happen. Last, the grant program that I had mentioned earlier, that'll be coming with some changes. I may even distribute that to this group because if you talk to any businesses or anybody in the community that might be interested, you're kind of our boots on the ground out there. I want you to be aware of what that allows, and if anybody's got anything with a building, a facade, a ground sign, parking lot islands, things that just kind of beautify commercial properties and make them better, will be eligible for this, up to $10,000. There's not a lot of money budgeted this year. My hope is we run out of money and I have to go to city council and ask them for more. That'll be a win if we can get to that. So there's a few bit in it. If there's businesses or properties you think would be really good for that program, let me know that as well, because I'll reach out to them. So like the skating center and stuff, we've been in contact with them to try and utilize it for that property to see if we can get some upgrades on that fairly dated facade that's had some maintenance issues. So, the Route 66 signs are up at their 3 locations. So if there should be a post tomorrow, if not, it'll be early next week, like social media posts and stuff, for just the Route 66 100-year anniversary. So the 3 new signs are at the Shell and the Dunkin' Donuts that's on Route 66, which is Broadway Street. But then there's a sign at the Prairie Bluff Golf Course Restaurant as well. And then there's a sign at Marichka's, obviously kind of Crest Hill's most famous business. Not on Route 66, but it's a pretty good stop if you're on Route 66. So.
And what was that one? The last one I didn't hear.
Marichka's. It's a restaurant. If you get it close enough, he'll know what it is. So at those 3 locations, we got the new signs, and then we have the 4th one here. We also have a web page, cresthill.com/RT66. That's just got some information. A documentary link will be in there too as well for the Route 66 that showcases, even if for 10 seconds, Crest Hill, as well as some of the other stops along Route 66. So.
I'm trying to find a model of that sign, and I cannot find one anywhere. I even went to the Route 66 store, and when I asked them, they looked at me like, no, I've never heard of anybody making a model. What?
A model of which?
Of the Route 66 sign?
Oh, like a small version of this
just
one?
a small version for my train, you know?
I can connect you with the sign company that made those, because they might be able to reproduce
I mean,
it.
you could sell
You could basically
many of those.
3D print it if you
Yeah.
had the right, and they
Exactly.
have the numbers.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, put me in touch with them, because I have the 3D printer capability.
yeah, they'll be, and they wanted pictures and stuff too, so they'll
Oh,
kind of
good.
be pushing it out, because they have a lot of signs. And that was funded by Heritage Corridor, helped us fund that, as well as JADA, the Joliet Arsenal Area Arsenal District, that the mayor is a part of as well, helped us acquire.
Are they unique just to our area, or do they go those same signs going all the way through Route 66?
They
all the way out?
like the one we got out here was a 2023, I think it was an effort by Heritage Corridor, and it goes basically from Lamont to like Dwight. So every town along there has one. You had to pay in a couple $1,000s, and you got a pretty nice sign out of it. But that was largely funded by the Heritage Corridor as a one-time program. But then they helped us with just a little bit with these 3 new signs that are a little smaller, but they still stand out.
Yeah.
I think so far the vote of everyone's favorite has been the Prairie Bluff one, and I kind of let them pick it first, so they got first dibs out of the 3 signs. So, yeah. So, and sorry, last we also have a tenant that should be going into 21225 Ladise Parkway, which is the 577,000 square foot
Yeah,
building.
wow.
That's over by Amazon. So. That's been vacant for as long as I've been here. It was obviously our biggest vacancy in the city. It would be one tenant. They would kind of phase their occupancy of the building, but they would occupy
Yeah, we
that.
actually worked on making some changes for Ladise a couple of years ago, and that, they never followed through on it, so it's great to hear that that's finally gonna.
Yep, we're looking forward to seeing that occupied, having a business and their employees, and, producing both employment and property taxes.
Trouble is that was always kind of an odd-shaped lot building, that it's not like anybody could go in. You had to be pretty specific wanting to go in there, so.
Yeah,
that's-
I mean, it is a warehouse distribution. I would have loved to have some great manufacturing use in there. I think adds more benefits. The way that building, the size, the design, it was meant to be a warehouse distribution, and that is what's going in there.
Yeah.
But we are glad to just see that it'll still be employment, it'll still be a good business in there. And property taxes are helpful too. I think they got their first property tax bill, which is kind of what helped to move them along to get it occupied. But that'll help the school districts out, it'll help the city out, it'll
Yeah,
help
good.
everybody to have, that'll be like the biggest building in the entire city is that one. So it'll be good to have it occupied. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. A meeting next month? Are we planning a meeting next month?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, good.
We'll have meetings for the foreseeable future.